Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another red hot, spicy, tingling battle report. Yes, not from a tournament this time, which is a bit of a rarity these days. This is just a plain old regular battle report. No tournament placings on the line, just a battle. And this game took place at Warhammer World, and I took on the community legend Drunken Deer, who happened to be in town, and we had a game, 1,500 points, my Stormcast Eternals versus his Blades of Khorne. So, let's dive in, shall we? Because, in fact, before you see that picture, you can have a look at the table first of all. So obviously, Warhammer World, nice mats they've got, perfectly suited for Age of Sigmar, of course. And the terrain's a little bit mismatched, as it often is at Warhammer World, but it's fine. So, we didn't have that long to play this game, so 1,500 points was chosen as the point level, so we still get enough points to put in some fun stuff, but it's not going to take 4 hours to play. And I decided to put in some experimental units that I haven't necessarily used before, and some fun stuff, maybe that doesn't get as much play in a competitive arena. So, what is in my list? Let's go through. You can see right in the middle we've got Big Bad Bastian. So it's a Hammers of Sigmar army to take most advantage of his special rules. And we've also got, in the leader section, we'll come back to these lovely pictures in a minute, but I think, is there a picture of my... Where's the rest of my army? There should be a picture of my army on the side of the table, the things that I haven't actually deployed, but we've got the Knight Heraldor, who doesn't make it into competitive lists very often because he's just a little trumpety boy, blows his trumpet at a terrain piece, maybe does a few mortal wounds to nearby units, then gets killed. That's his role in every game he's ever been in. But he's fun, so he gets in there for a friendly game. We've also got the Knight Venator, who is also not on the table. That is the wingy, shooty Stormcast hero, who also doesn't get much play. I think he's a little bit expensive for competitive play, perhaps. 140 points, so more than some of the other heroes that are generally seen as a better choice. Then, rather than Fulminators, I've gone for, first of all, 2 Concussors, and then 2 Tempestors as well, with the magnetised weapons that I've got from my most recent Dracothian Guard unit. Taken off the Fulminator arms, put on the Tempestor arms, so we've got 2 Tempestors ready to drop down from the sky and unleash their crossbow frenzy. Haven't tried them at all before, so it's a good opportunity to use those. I've got 5 Liberators, which you can see on the table there, and then I've got 10 Vanquishers, which I haven't used as a 10 before. I've only used them in 2 units of 5, so being a 10, you do get a couple of benefits, but obviously the unit's more expensive. The benefits are that you can take a standard and a musician in the unit, and the standard bearer adds 1 to the unit's bravery, and the musician allows you to rally models back on a 5 instead of a 6, which is interesting, and would be very interesting for a larger unit than 10 even. And then we've also got the Stormstrike Chariot, which is in there just because I wanted things that look cool as well as just are fun in gameplay. And I also wanted to go for a mixture of unit types because my opponent isn't as well versed in Age of Sigmar as a lot of the people I usually play at tournaments, so I wanted to have a bit of a mixture of unit styles as well as trying out some different things. Now, what did my opponent bring to the table in the Blades of Khorne? Well, actually, I can tell you as well that my grand strategy is... I've got my options on my list here. So my grand strategy is take what's theirs, which is to have more of my units in enemy territory than enemy units at the end of the game. And my holy command that I've taken, I've gone for Steadfast March, which allows me to run and charge with a unit. Now, as far as I understand, you can't also use that at the same time as a, what's it even called? The command that allows you to automatically run 6. I don't think you can combine those because it would be putting 2 commands on the same unit. Someone would correct me if that's a wrong interpretation, but that's how I'm understanding it going into this game. So, on to... we'll look at these cinematic shots. The Vanquishers do look very nice as a 10, I have to admit. And I'll go through the Khorne list now. So, we have got a grand strategy of the Blood Legion's March, which I believe I was informed that it's to summon a demon unit onto the battlefield, which is done via an accumulation of blood tithe points, which Khorne build up whenever units are killed and a couple of other different ways. But generally it's when a unit dies it adds to the blood tithe pool, which is then cashed in for either abilities on units or summoned units. So we've got some Blood Warriors. There are 10 of them. Or are they Blood Warriors? Are they Blood Reavers? I think these are the Blood Warriors. 10 Blood Warriors there. We've got Wrathmongers. We've got... I think these are the Blood Reavers. Yeah, they're the cheaper ones. They're not quite as powerful unit. The Blood Warriors are the nasty ones. There's a unit of 20 Blood Warriors, in fact. And yeah, that's a 320 point unit. So, pretty tasty. There are more Wrathmongers, in fact. There's another unit here. The heroes, well, there's a Khorgorath, which is this big bad creature here. There are a couple of Slaughter Priests. There's one there, and there's one down here somewhere, I think. And this guy is a Mighty Lord of Khorne, who doesn't have the dog on his base yet, but I'm assured it will be there eventually. And then there is also this hero up here, which is the Blood Secretor, who is hanging out in the Khorne terrain, which is the Skull Altar. So being in there allows you to use a prayer, something like that, and it also gives bonuses to prayers to nearby Khorne priests, among other effects. Typical piece of faction terrain. Now, the one thing that I've noted about Khorne when I was looking through the list is that they do lack quite a bit of rend. There's not much rend in there. There's a decent amount of -1, not much more, which may cause problems against Stormcast. So, if you're ever in a situation where you're lacking the rend to get through enemy armour and you're concerned about all-out defence, kind of negating all your attacks, I think one potential way of getting around that is to engage on multiple fronts, because, as you know, all-out defence can only be cast on one unit, or can only be used, that command can only be issued on one unit at a time. So if the enemy are stacking up their save buffs on one unit, and you're engaging multiple units, then that's one way to get your attacks through. Because often in this game, you want to limit the number of combats you initiate, because then you can decide that you go first in that combat, and then your opponent can't also then pick a unit to go first in a different combat. But in this case, maybe you want multiple fronts opening up. And also, some of these Khorne units have the ability to fight on death, so if they haven't activated yet and they are killed, then they still get to swing, which is pretty cool. So let's go all the way back to the battle plan, and we're playing the Prize of Gallet, which has 5 objectives, and each turn the player who's going second picks one of the objectives to become active, and in the first round you have to pick one of those down the centre line. You can't pick one on the edge of anyone's territory in the first round. So, there is the battlefield, and there are the objectives, and there are the armies. So you'll notice I've got the concussors and the chariots behind the slightly more expendable units in front. This unit, with it being reinforced, isn't now particularly expendable. It's about the same price as the concussors actually now, but there's more bodies in there. So obviously a chariot, it's so fast you don't need it on the front line, and the enemy army is not particularly fast. It's mostly just foot slogging. They do have a couple of invocations as well, by the way. There's the Wrath Axe and the Hex Gorgeous Skulls. The Hex Gorgeous Skulls can affect your spellcasters. I do have one, by the way, because I've given the Arcane Tome to the Knight Venator, who's not on the table yet, with the spell Lightning Blast that doesn't have a range, so I think that ties in nicely with the long-range shooting ability. You don't have to get close to the enemy to use the spell either. But I've also got the option to use, for example, Mystic Shield. So the Hex Gorgeous Skulls. I think the way that works is that if you're near to one of those and you roll an 8 when casting a spell, then you take damage. And it also just gives you -2 to your spell casting as well. And the Wrath Axe just does damage. I don't have any priests, so I'm not going to be able to stop any of the invocations as they come in. So, I think we have the same number of drops. So since I won the roll and decided to put a unit down first, then that means I get the choice of going first or second. I chose to go second, and if we look at the wide shot, I have activated the objective over here, because this is where my opponent doesn't have any of the big threats. The 20 Blood Warriors I think is a really big threat, and the fighty heroes. I think this side just looks scarier than that side. So I've activated that objective first. And if one of these smaller units goes straight for the objective, then that's something the Chariot would very much like to have a say in. Chariot against a small unit like that is quite scary with the mortal wounds it does on the charge, and its attacks against these Khorne units that don't have great armor saves, its attacks could actually do something. One feature of Bastian as well, he gets 1 free command point per turn to spend with unlimited range, so the Chariot that is forever going out of range and can't have commands spent on it because it's too far away from heroes and it's not elite, Bastian is a good accompaniment for Chariots because he can of course issue commands anywhere with that 1 free one per turn. So into the first turn, and Khorne are advancing up, and it's not a particularly wild advance, and it should be pointed out as well that my opponent did not feel that he could actually accomplish any battle tactics in turn 1. We looked through the deck of tactics and determined that probably, short of sending one of the heroes straight out onto this objective, I think that could have possibly got a battle tactic. But I don't know if any of the heroes were actually close enough. If we go back here, all the heroes are kind of in a blob on this side, and it's the objective all the way on the other side, so I don't even know if running would have got them far enough. So he decides just not going to bother with the battle tactic for this turn, and just going to set up a nice little formation there. And there were other battle tactics that could have potentially been achieved, but they all involve killing enemy units, and my opponent did not feel confident in killing any of the units that are currently on the table. And to even attempt to kill an enemy unit, it would have needed something quite powerful. It'd kind of go all in on getting it across the table in one go and leave it very much exposed if it fails its charge. So I think there were some possibilities, but they weren't deemed worth trying. So 2 points scored for scoring an objective, and more objectives than me. In my turn, I go for gaining momentum, so I pick an enemy unit and decide I'm going to try and kill it and hold more objectives than the enemy. So the unit I choose is these Blood Warriors, I think. Actually, it may have been the Wrathmongers. So let's go back. These Wrathmongers here are the ones I choose. So you can see they've, by the time the next picture comes along, they've redeployed further back because the Chariot moves towards them. There's only 5 models there. And I'm thinking I'm going to charge the Chariot in there. I'm going to bring the Tempesters down behind them as well. So they do run away from the Chariot and they roll a 6 for the redeploy. So the Chariot is on about a 12-inch charge or something like that now. So it's quite far. You can see the Knight Heraldor has plopped down there. Oh yeah, the invocation, those skulls have come down here as well, which aren't going to make too much of a difference yet, because I'm not spellcasting right next to them. But the Knight Heraldor there just got him wholly within 18 inches of that terrain piece, so he can unleash his mighty trumpet blast and do mortal wounds to nearby units. The Concussors and the Vanquishers have moved up here. I'm wary of this 20 block of Blood Warriors. I don't want to get too close to it. So I'm just staying at a reasonable distance, but at such a distance so that if I don't get the next turn, then the enemy coming in with this big unit, it's definitely not guaranteed to make the charge on me. But if I get the next turn, Concussors, who are much faster than infantry, of course are very likely to get in. So there's the Chariot chasing, the Tempesters come in behind enemy lines, and they're going to unleash their hail of crossbows into the Wrathmongers and then try and charge them. And the Knight Venator has come down here behind the Liberators and is also shooting at them. So you can see, cleared out a couple, but alas, didn't make any charges, so the Tempesters failed their rerollable 9-inch charge, and the Chariot failed its 12-inch charge, which is always likely to happen anyway. So just 2 points, because I do take the objective, because I move enough Liberators into range, and the Wrathmongers, of course, redeployed to get away from the Chariot, so they're no longer helping to contest it. So I move just enough models into range to take the objective. So 2 each after the first round, but I have wasted gaining momentum, which is usually one of the more reliable battle tactics. On to the next round, and the Blades of Khorne are going to get it, and my opponent goes for a Matter of Honour, which is kill an enemy Galatian champion with one of your own Galatian champions in this instance, because we don't have any sworn bodyguard units. So it's just champion on champion, and my opponent would like to kill the Knight Heraldor. So, of course, I immediately put Finest Hour on him, because the objective is to kill him. So he's unlikely to last the turn, so might as well get this out of the way now. And what my plan is, wait for the enemy Galatian champions who are going to try and kill him to come closer, and then redeploy him, and hopefully get far enough to get right behind Bastian, so that if the enemy want to attack the Knight Heraldor, then Bastian will smack them down. That's the plan. Anything you can do to get Bastian into combat faster is a plus. You can see this other invocation here as well that's putting wounds about the place. Look at Mr. Heraldor there, he's already taken some wounds. So the enemy, lovely cinematic shot there with the Warhammer World wall in the background, the battle lines staring at each other, Concussors and the Vanquishers facing off against forces of Khorne, Wrathmongers at the front there. Now, the 20 Blood Warriors actually move backwards. Interesting, not particularly cornate strategy, but do not want to just get caught in a position here where both these units will easily be able to charge them. And over here, you can see the Blood Reavers. These are the Blood Reavers here. They're kind of shielding some of these other units, but not particularly. And this guy is the one that wants to come and kill the Knight Heraldor. So after choosing the battle tactic, my opponent was realising actually it's a little bit risky trying to throw out multiple champions out there to try and take down this guy. And I do manage to redeploy right next to Bastian. The Wrathmongers and the Blood Warriors on that side of the table do successfully charge the Tempesters, who do unleash hell and kill a couple of Wrathmongers, which is nice. Actually, I think it was Blood Warriors that went in first, so I killed a couple of them first. Yeah, because these guys had already lost 2 from the previous round. So that's going to be a bloodbath. They do look cool with those crossbows, don't they? The Khorgorath actually makes a charge into the Chariot, which I think was quite a long one. It gets in there. And this guy, one of the Slaughter Priests, I think, does get into the Knight Heraldor and kills him. And I think it was just an ability that he used rather than his actual attacks. I think. Or it was an attack that he gets when he charges, some kind of bonus, but killed him. So, succeeds with the battle tactic, but then of course Bastian is just going to whomp him on the head with his massive hammer. Over here I've stuck all-out defense on the Tempesters because it would be nice to keep them alive and hold up these 2 units for a while, keeping them away from the objectives. And we're putting wounds taken on the dice during this game. So yeah, Bastian swings his hammer very casually and just whomps the champion there, but not before they got their battle tactic. Accumulating wounds on the Tempesters despite all-out defense, but you can see the Khorne units are dropping as well. The Khorgorath does 6 wounds to the Chariot, and this is the state of play after the combat up here. There is not much left at all. Of course, the Tempester, when it dies, explodes, which actually took out the final Wrathmonger, I think, and there's just a couple of Blood Warriors left there now. So, total bloodbath, and not much left there to fight with. Bastian, you can see, is getting stuck into combat now. And we go on to a different turn now. We may well have done. So here's Bastian up against... that all-out defense might have been for one of the Khorne units who is now dead. Yeah, I think it was the Khorne Lord who Bastian whomped in the face with the hammer and killed. So let's just go back here. I think we are on a different turn. Yeah, because there's more combat going on now. So I think we've morphed into my turn, potentially now. Yeah, because the chariot's all the way up here now. That's what it looks like. So, Bastian is now engaged with all these guys. Because of his ability to pile in, obviously. He's able to draw multiple units into the fight. Or maybe they did it. And up here, more wounds are done there. So, yeah, that was... We did just swoop into my turn there. So, I pick Cunning Maneuver for my turn, which I achieved with the Knight Venator getting onto this objective. And the other one that was active for this round is this objective here, which I'm still holding. I did move off it, but it's still mine, so I'm holding this one and the one that's hiding behind the terrain there. Those are the only two that are active. Since I went second, both times I've picked both the objectives so far. And look at this. So, I get the next turn, but you'll notice the Blood Warriors have charged me. That's because the Blood Tithe, which has been building up with the units that have died, has been cashed in, allowing a Khorne unit to charge in my hero phase. I think it's the end of my hero phase, it specifies. So that is very powerful, and they actually make the charge as well. So they form a nice big line right across the Concussors and the Vanquishers. So this is suddenly very spicy and interesting. We've got Bastian, 10 Vanquishers and 2 Concussors versus 20 Blood Warriors, and then all this lot as well. So there's going to be some carnage here. Some of the Vanquishers do get killed as a result of that charge, and one of the Concussors dies as well. So, yeah, that's powerful. However, as we go through the turn, you will see that when the Stormcast strike back with their furious celestial vengeance, they do kill off lots of the Blood Warriors, and the Concussors as well, so we're down to just a few. But you may recall that the Blood Warriors are able to strike after dying. Well, they have a final go at fighting before they're taken off. So they are going to fight again. And as a result of that, bum bum bum, more carnage, more death. Everyone's dead except for 3 Blood Warriors. So, charging in my hero phase, killed a load of them, then got smacked down, and then they killed what was left when they fight on death. So, total bloodbath, only 3 Blood Warriors remaining. However, it is a unit of 20, so that says to me that unit is the perfect candidate for a rally in the next turn. You can see that Bastian is slowly working his way through this whole mess of Khorne here, and the chariot is now getting involved as well. So, this fight is still going on somehow. And I did score my battle tactic again in that turn, which was to desecrate this land. So you can see I've got multiple models in range of it, including the chariot, and the enemy only have that guy who then died, I think, the hero that was there. So my opponent then goes for desecrate their lands in his turn 3, and wants to desecrate this bit of terrain here with the Blood Warriors. And what happens now with that rally? Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 7 of them came back. 6 or 7. So obviously when you're rallying a unit of 20 that's only got 3 left, you're throwing a lot of dice. And there were quite a few 6s there. So very important. That's suddenly become a powerful unit. And the Blood Tithe, which has been building again, is cashed in to bring in some of these nasty, nasty blood letters of Khorne. And they've plopped down right onto an objective. So that's going to be annoying to deal with, because I'm actually running out of units at the moment. I've got a decent victory point lead, but the fact that I've lost everything over here against this unit that's just rallied back to life. I've got Bastian, the chariot, Liberators, and the Knight Venator against all those Blood Warriors. Still some enemies left here, and fresh demons, and there's the tiny fight going on right at the top right there as well. So these guys just move straight onto well, it's their objective for the turn, the piece of terrain, And which objective has become active? Oh yeah, it was that one. My opponent chose that objective to become active, which I don't think I've taken off him yet because there's too many Khorne models within range of it. So, Khorne are going to start scoring now. You can see the Tempester does finally take out the final Blood Warrior up there, so wins out in that fight. And my opponent is able to score some points. Is able to get the battle tactic and unfortunately not hold on to this objective because the Chariot is able to, and Bastian are able to chew through the Khorne forces there. So I've got 2 objectives, my opponent only has the 1. So 3 points. On to the next round. And my opponent gets the first crack at round 4 and goes for eye for an eye because Bastian, among others, were able to kill off units, and you can see the blood tithe building already again. So eye for an eye obviously doesn't specify which unit you have to kill, you just have to kill 1. Blood letters working their way up towards centre. This objective that's just become active, they're moving towards that to claim it. And the skulls heading towards to surround my only spellcaster with the Arcane Tome, the Knight Venator, and the other invocation as well, the Hexgorger skulls and the, what's it called, the Wrath Axe. So all converging on this point here. And it actually manages to kill him. So my spellcaster is dead. These Blood Warriors, this is the unit that was freshly... In fact, I think they've gained even more models since then. I think they had another go at Rally and brought a couple more back. So they've gone in after the Chariot. And they're going to dish out some serious wounds. Another unit of Bloodletters has come on, 5 of them, near this objective. I don't think it's enough to take the objective off me, because I don't think enough of them are close enough yet, or if any of them are at all. Because they did not make their charge when they dropped in. Over here you can see this has just turned into a bloodbath. The Chariot, which had all-out defense played on it. Now all-out defense seems to be very effective against Khorne because they're not that big on rend. I imagine when they get a new book there's going to be some kind of reworking of their rend because armour seems to have got better. Armour and rend seem to be improving on all the armies that are released. So I don't know if I'd like to see Khorne get better armour saves. I don't think that's necessarily what they need. I don't think everyone in the whole game needs to have a really good save. I think they do need more rend though. And I don't know if they should just be a flat extra rend onto all their existing weapons or whether you should have some way of generating that extra rend. For example, if they rework the way the blood tithe works, if you could cash in a blood tithe point for an extra point of rend on a unit, something like that, I think that would be cool and a way of making it unique without just bumping up a stat, which is obviously not as exciting. Although, obviously, I'm not a Khorne expert, so if any of them are actually watching this, then let me know what changes you would like to see that would be thematic for Khorne. So obviously Khorne are kind of starting to dominate the centre of the table a bit, and they are able to get their first maximum point turn, 5 points for that turn, and you can see the blood tithe building up again. On to my next turn, and I go for eye for an eye, because I just lost who did I lose? I lost the Knight Venator. Yep, so that's how the enemy got eye for an eye, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get eye for an eye in this turn, because I've got this guy who's not got many wounds left, and I've also got a small unit of bloodletters over here as well that I could maybe get. I think those guys are dead, by the way. I think they were just left there because they get to fight after they're killed. So, in my turn, the Tempester's working his way down here, shoots off some bloodletters. Bastian finishes off lots of the Khorne dudes around here, and the Chariot takes out even more. So whittling them down. This is the unit that started off with 20 and then went back up to about 14 or so. And I have taken this objective now because the Chariot and Bastian combined are worth more than these 3 dudes, these 3 chumps. And that is the state of play after my turn. I'm ignoring this unit. So I score 4 points because I get my battle tactic. I hold 1 objective, that one. I hold 2 objectives, that one, but I don't hold more than my opponent. I don't hold this one or this one. And in round 5, basically because of the lead I've built up, then in round 5, if I go first, it'll be an unassailable lead. Because I don't think my opponent can stop me getting my grand strategy, which is just to have more units in enemy territory. The Tempesta can go up there pretty much uncontested, Bastian can get there and he's not going to die. The Liberators could auto-run there as well, so that would be an auto. I could also claim an objective, more objectives possibly, but even then I think the lead is too big. If Khorne go next, they can obviously score and prevent me from scoring after that, and they can catch my units quickly before I actually get a chance to get into enemy territory. So it all comes down to this roll. And turn 5, you'll see the chariot got killed there as well. But Bastian ends up in these guys, and oh no, the chariot ran away. Okay, yeah, so that's what happened. So I did get the next turn. Chariot runs away into enemy territory, and we decide at that point that because time is very short and my opponent had to leave, then we would stop it there, because it was pretty much decided at that point. Chariot runs away, Bastian's fighting them, they're not going to make it out alive. Tempesta can run away, these guys can run away. So we worked out it was an unassailable lead at that point, and the Blades of Khorne are going to have to relinquish their claim to the battlefield, and the day belongs to the Hammers of Sigmar. So, it's a nice fun game using some different units that I haven't used much before. Tempesta's first time they've seen the battlefield at all, and they're quite fun. When you look at their flat stats, they don't look that exciting, but then when you actually read the text as well and see that they do double their hits, then actually quite useful. And they combine well with some of the units as well, I'm led to believe. The Knight Heraldor, fun as always, and it was just a nice fun game against an army that you don't see much of out there, the Blades of Khorne, and hopefully they'll get some added spice with a new book soon. Don't forget to comment on this video, by the way, and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And why not follow me on Twitter and all the other various social media that you can probably find down in the video description. And if anyone is watching this live, by the way, I'm sure some people are, feel free to drop in a comment before I end this one. So, nice fun game, and nice to get Bastian out on the table again. Nice to play with a kind of a non-attempted optimised list, more of a fun list. It's still got some strong stuff in it, and it was quite tough for Khorne to crack through it. And as I was saying at the start, when you do get multiple combats going, then the lack of rend isn't as big of an issue, because obviously only one unit is being all-out defensed per turn. So when you're fighting on multiple fronts, like this game did come down to at the kind of midpoint, when you had the Blood Warriors against the Concussors and the Vanquishers, you had Bastian in there fighting, you had the Chariot in there, you got the Tempestas versus Blood Warriors and Wrathmongers. Yeah, lots of combats going on, you can only all-out defense one of them. So the lack of rend is less of a detriment when you can attack on multiple fronts. So you just have to approach the game a bit differently. Still, I do think Blades of Khorne probably a little bit underpowered, and could do with a little bit of a rend boost in the new book. Okay, time to wrap this one up, I think. So it's a victory for the Stormcast, and when is the next Age of Sigmar event, actually? Let me just tell you. Get my little tournament calendar out here. So, the next Age of Sigmar event that I currently have a ticket for is at the start of May. If any others come up before then, I'll let you know. But that's the next one. The next event of any kind, I've got a Kings of War one in 2 weeks, where I'll be defending my crown at the Bull Run. The crown that I've won twice now, the best overall crown at that event. So seeing if I can win the third one in a row. And then after that, at the start of April, there's a Dead Zone tournament. So all game systems getting representation on this channel, which is nice. Yeah, so I've got quite a lot of tournaments penciled in. And in fact, they're not even just penciled in anymore. I've got lots of tournaments confirmed for the rest of the year, all the way up to October. Got lots of Sigmar and Kings of War events booked already. So, don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment as well if you've got any thoughts on what you would do to improve Khorne. And keep it thematic, of course. We don't just want to see a general stats boost, we want something with a bit of flavour for the comment section. And also, which Stormcast units would you like to see in games in the future? Because obviously I'm going to have more friendly games, as well as tournaments. So in the more casual kind of practice games, which units would you like to see get some play? Because I've got a lot in the cabinet. Got lots of heroes that I never use, lots of units that I never use. Would you like to see any of them in action? Okay, all that remains to be said is... good night out there, whatever you are.